Picture this. It's June 1314, somewhere in the Scottish Highlands, and 6,000 ragged Scottish soldiers are standing face to face with 20,000 of England's finest warriors. We're talking about an army packed with heavily armored knights, thousands of elite archers, and enough steel to make a blacksmith weep. The English are so confident they're practically laughing. This should be a massacre. This should be over in an hour. But what actually happened that day was so insane, so completely unbelievable, that it changed the course of history forever. Because those 6,000 Scots didn't just survive. They absolutely demolished the English army in one of the most brutal and tactical beatdowns medieval Europe had ever seen. And the man who pulled it off? A king who was literally excommunicated by the church, hunted like an animal, and given zero chance of success. This is the story of the Battle of Bannockburn, and trust me, you're not ready for how wild this gets. Let's rewind a bit because you need to understand just how impossible this victory actually was. For years, Scotland had been England's punching bag. King Edward I, who literally earned the nickname Hammer of the Scots, had spent decades crushing every bit of Scottish resistance he could find. He forced Scottish nobles to kneel and swear loyalty to England, and if they refused, execution, simple as that. Even William Wallace, the legendary freedom fighter you might know from movies, tried to lead a resistance and ended up being captured and executed in the most horrific way imaginable. By the early 1300s, Scotland looked utterly hopeless. The English controlled almost everything, and anyone who dared to resist was quickly reminded why that was a very bad idea. But then comes Robert the Bruce, and this guy's story is absolutely bonkers from the start. Bruce was a Scottish nobleman with a legitimate claim to the Scottish throne, but he had a bit of a problem. In 1306, he got into an argument with his rival, John Comyn, inside a church. And when I say argument, I mean Bruce straight up murdered the guy in a church, which was like the ultimate sacrilege back then. But instead of running away in shame, Bruce decided to double down in the most spectacular way possible. He crowned himself King of Scotland, just like that. No permission, no ceremony, no army to back him up. People literally laughed at him. They called him a king without land or an army. The church excommunicated him for the whole murder in a church thing. He was essentially a wanted criminal with a crown he made up. But here's where Bruce proved he wasn't just some delusional nobleman playing dress-up. He was a tactical genius. Instead of fighting big, dramatic battles he knew he'd lose, Bruce waged guerrilla warfare. He hit English garrisons when they weren't expecting it, recaptured castles one by one, and slowly but surely started taking back Scotland piece by piece. By 1314, after years of this brilliant strategy, Bruce controlled almost the entire country. Almost. There was one major exception: Stirling Castle. And this castle was about to become the center of everything. Stirling Castle wasn't just any fortress. It was the strategic choke point that controlled the route between the Scottish Highlands and the south. Whoever held Stirling controlled Scotland's main artery. Bruce's brother Edward had been besieging the castle for months, and eventually he made a deal with the English commander that sounds insane by modern standards, but was pretty normal back then. The deal was simple. If no English army showed up to rescue Stirling Castle by June 24th, the commander would surrender it peacefully. No bloodshed, no drama, just hand over the keys and walk away. Now, this put the new English king, Edward II, in an absolutely terrible position. If he let Stirling fall without even trying to save it, he'd look like a complete coward in front of his entire kingdom. His father, Edward I, the Hammer of the Scots, would be rolling in his grave. So Edward did the only thing his pride would allow. He assembled the most massive army he could possibly gather and marched north to crush Robert the Bruce once and for all. And when I say massive army, I mean massive. We're talking 20,000 men, which was an absolutely enormous force for medieval times. Among them were 2,500 heavy cavalry, the absolute elite of medieval warfare. These weren't just guys on horses. These were knights in full plate armor, riding massive war horses that were also armored. They were basically medieval tanks. Then there were 3,000 Welsh longbowmen, and if you know anything about medieval history, you know these guys were terrifying. Their arrows could punch through armor at 200 yards. Add thousands more infantry and you've got an army that should have been unstoppable. The English were so confident that many of them were probably already planning their victory celebrations. Robert the Bruce, meanwhile, had about 6,000 men. That's it. No heavy cavalry to speak of, mostly infantry, and definitely not enough to win a traditional medieval battle against a force 3 times larger with superior equipment. But Bruce wasn't planning to fight a traditional battle. He'd spent weeks preparing for this, and he'd chosen his battlefield with surgical precision. The location was a narrow strip of land between the Bannockburn River and the forests of the new park. This might not sound like a big deal, but it was absolutely genius. The narrow terrain meant the English couldn't deploy their full army at once. They couldn't flank, couldn't spread out, couldn't use their numerical advantage effectively. They'd be funneled into a kill box. But Bruce didn't stop there. His men had spent days digging thousands of small pits all across the battlefield and covering them with branches and grass. These weren't just holes. They were specifically designed to break the legs of charging horses. One wrong step and an armored warhorse would go down hard, throwing its rider and creating chaos. Then there were the schiltrons. These were Bruce's secret weapon. A schiltron was a circular formation of soldiers armed with spears that were about 3 meters long. Imagine a human hedgehog, bristling with spears in every direction. When cavalry charged at a schiltron, they weren't hitting individual soldiers they could cut down. They were running face first into a wall of sharpened steel. Horses, being smarter than they're given credit for, generally refused to charge into such formations. And if they did, well, things got very messy very fast for the riders. June 23rd arrives, and the English army shows up in all their armoured glory. And here's where one of the most legendary moments in Scottish history happens. An English knight named Henry de Bohun was riding ahead of the main army when he spotted Robert the Bruce himself, mounted on a small horse and armed with nothing but a battle axe. No armour, no lance, just a king with an axe. De Bohun saw this as his moment of glory. If he could kill Robert the Bruce in single combat, he'd be a legend forever. So he lowered his lance and charged at full speed on his massive warhorse. Bruce didn't run. He didn't call for help. He waited until the absolute last second, then swerved his lighter horse to the side, rose up in his stirrups, and brought his battle axe down on de Bohun's head with so much force that it split the knight's helmet clean in half and cracked his skull open. The axe handle actually shattered from the impact. De Bohun was dead before he hit the ground. The Scottish army went absolutely wild with morale. The English were stunned into silence. Their champion had just been killed in the most dramatic fashion possible by a king they'd been told was weak and desperate. That night, the English commanders had a serious debate. Some of them, the smart ones, advised waiting and repositioning. They could see the terrain was bad. They could see the Scots had prepared defences. But King Edward II was impatient. That June 24th deadline was the next day, and his pride wouldn't let him wait. He ordered the attack for dawn. It was the single biggest mistake of the entire campaign. June 24th arrives, and as the sun comes up, the English heavy cavalry begins their attack. But there's a problem immediately. To reach the Scottish position, they have to cross the Bannockburn and funnel through that narrow strip of land Bruce had chosen so carefully. The cavalry charges forward, confident in their invincibility, and slams directly into the Scottish schiltrons. And the schiltrons hold. The spears do their job perfectly. The first wave of cavalry crashes into that wall of steel and just stops. Horses rear up, knights are thrown, and the cavalry behind them keeps charging forward because they can't see what's happening up front. It's a traffic jam of armored chaos. Then the hidden pits start doing their work. Horses step wrong, legs break, riders go flying in full armor and can't get back up. The English archers try to help, but they're too close to their own cavalry. If they shoot, they're just as likely to hit English knights as Scottish soldiers. Bruce saw this happening and sent his 500 light cavalry to attack the isolated archers. The archers, who were devastating at range but helpless in close combat, were slaughtered or scattered. For hours, the battle grinds on in that narrow killing field. The front lines of the English army are fighting desperately, but the rear lines can't even engage because there's no room. Men are packed so tightly together they can barely move. The heat is unbearable. Soldiers in full armor are collapsing from exhaustion and heat stroke. Bodies are piling up so high they're becoming obstacles. This isn't a battle anymore. It's a medieval horror show. Then Bruce plays his final card. He's been holding back a reserve force, fresh troops from Argyll under a commander named Angus Ogg. He throws them into the battle right when the English are at their most exhausted. At the exact same moment, the Scottish baggage train, which is just servants and camp followers, appears on a nearby hill. To the exhausted, heat-stroked, psychologically destroyed English soldiers, it looks like an entirely fresh Scottish army has just arrived. That's the breaking point. Panic spreads like wildfire. Soldiers start screaming, "Treason!" and retreat. The king's own bodyguards physically grab Edward II and drag him away from the battlefield for his own safety. What had been an organized army 30 seconds ago becomes a terrified mob. Soldiers throw away their weapons, strip off their armor, anything to run faster. Many of them drown in the Bannockburn trying to escape while still wearing heavy equipment. The Scots pursue and cut them down by the hundreds. When the dust settles, the casualties are absolutely staggering. More than 4,000 English soldiers are dead. The Scottish losses, fewer than 500. Dozens of English nobles are captured, and the ransom money from these prisoners literally finances the Scottish kingdom for years. It's not just a victory, it's a complete and total annihilation. The Battle of Bannockburn proved that England wasn't invincible. It proved that discipline, tactics, and choosing the right ground could defeat numerical superiority and better equipment. Robert the Bruce, the excommunicated king who everyone said was doomed, had just secured his legitimacy forever. The English would keep trying to reconquer Scotland for years, but their momentum was broken. In 1328, the Treaty of Edinburgh officially recognized Scottish independence, all because 6,000 Scots refused to accept the impossible.